Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our December Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, our last one of 2024. All right, I will call the meeting to order then and begin with the land acknowledgement. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that work and live in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the land on which we live. Moving along to disclosures of pecuniary interest. Nothing this evening. All right. And then we'll move over to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover for this evening's agenda? Councillor Kristanji, fantastic. And I'll need a seconder. Brian, I guess I'm just going to move between the two of us for now. Okay, all in favor. That's great. Okay, agenda has been approved. And then we'll move on to our minutes for November the 12th, a mover for our November minutes. Brian, switching it up, and seconded by Councillor Kristanji. Thank you. All in favor? Great. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so this evening is meeting mostly verbal updates. So it's a late meeting today, but we'll start with our first update of tonight, a Ontario Heritage Act update by Bianca. So go ahead, Bianca.
Thank you, through the chair. So this is a pretty specific amendment that's come out, and it's through Bill 227, the Cutting Red Tape Building Ontario Act 2024, and it's to streamline releasing of Ontario Heritage Trust conservation easements, and this is only for the trust easements. It doesn't affect like our municipal easements, and they're streamlining the process to make it easier that if someone needs to make an amendment to their property, they can adjust their easements as long as heritage attributes are not being affected. And we have 2 provincially designated properties in the town, so if they put an application in and they had to adjust the easement to accommodate for whatever that adjustment was, if like a severance or something happened, then as long as it doesn't affect the heritage attributes, it makes it easier for them to make those amendments. So it's still open for consultation right now, but it's mostly with the Heritage Act and their processes. So that's kind of the update right now, and I'll keep the committee updated as we hear more. And it's currently at its 2nd reading, so it will likely probably pass before the December date, but we'll see.
Thanks for that update, Bianca. I'm curious, from your professional opinion, is this changes to the easements? Is that a good thing for heritage properties?
Through the chair. So this is like the approval authority. They had to go higher above to get it. I forget the actual exact person it goes to. Let me see. Yeah, they had to go to the MCM Crown Agency. So I think it just helps to streamline the process. And like, from my perspective, I'm thinking if a property owner needs to make a change, like the Heritage Act is to guide and manage change. So as long as attributes aren't affected, I think it's actually good to have the process be as like smooth as it can be. And it just really, I think, further like solidifies that notion that designation is intended to guide and manage change and not to stop change. So I think it's a good thing, and it will make processes easier.
Thank you. I was just curious to hear what your thoughts were. Okay, any other questions from the committee on this change? Okay, then we can move forward with our resolution for this verbal update. Resolution here that the verbal update regarding the Ontario Heritage Act be received. A mover, Councillor Kristanji, and a seconder, Brian. Who would have thought? Only 2 people to choose from. Okay, great. All in favor? Fantastic, that's carried. Thank you for sharing that with us, Bianca. And we'll move over to the next one, which is the National Trust APT Heritage Conference that took place in Montreal. Bianca has an update for that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So I had the opportunity to attend the conference, and I just wanted to share some feedback we received. So I was able to talk to a few different municipalities and some colleagues in the field, and I've heard some really positive things about the work that's being done in Grimsby, and the success we're having is definitely getting noticed. And I think the thing that people were most happy to hear was all the engagement that we were doing. And then like some of those other pieces we've been doing to support the property owners, those toolkits were really well received. People really like the idea of the toolkits that we've been producing. And then general feedback, it's definitely been recognized by other people that the work we've been doing here. So I want to share that. And then I also wanted to share that kind of the common themes, the different kind of conversations and topics that were being had were definitely in alignment with the goals of the committee and the town. So I feel like we share a lot of the same priorities as other municipalities. So that was great to hear. When it came to our designation reports and things like that, we have a really good, strong portion on our Indigenous history, and we've kind of talked about how that layer is very important to us, and we wanted to incorporate it into all the reports. And then the way that we're evaluating properties, it's in alignment with how other municipalities and other professionals across the field are doing it. So that was really positive. And then, just talking to other different trades, and I was able to talk to some different vendors that were there. And I did get a bunch of contact information for our property owners when they're looking for specialized work, that they have a lot of options. And it was exciting to see some of the different ways that like roofing materials are being made to be more sustainable, but they really do look like historic materials. And so I was able to get that material for the property owners as well. But I think we're definitely in alignment with industry trends, and very confident in the way that we're assessing our resources. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
That's really great. And it's good to, when we have that validation, going to other people in the industry and in the field, and knowing that, you're being recognized for the work we're doing here, and that validated, and that we're going in the right direction. So that's really great. Any questions from the committee regarding the National Trust Conference? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We'll move on to the resolution. Resolved that the verbal update regarding the National Trust, CAHP, and APT Heritage Conference be received. A mover? Brian, awesome. And a seconder? Councillor Kristanji, great. Okay, all in favor? That's fantastic. Okay, that's carried. All right, moving on with our verbal updates. We have Garrett to present an update on the Heritage Property Grant Program. Go ahead, Garrett.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I wanted to update the committee that on November 18th, Council approved the Heritage Grant Selection Committee recommendations. So the successful applicants were approved, and they can now start entering into grant agreements with the town. Thank you.
Wow, that's really exciting. Awesome. So our first grant program is going ahead. Oh, well done, everyone. That's really great. I don't have any further questions on that. Anyone else? Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and will we get updates from the property owners afterwards? Like, will we get to see what they do with the funds? I forget.
So municipal staff will be completing an inspection of the work once it's been done, and then we'll share those final results with the committee for sure. Thank you.
Okay, that's awesome. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to our resolution. Resolved that the verbal update regarding the Heritage Property Grant be received. A mover? Brian? Seconder? Counselor DeFlavio. Okay, all in favor? That's great. Okay, that's carried. Okie doke. Heritage Committee meeting calendar. Okay, we'll get Bianca to share about next year's calendar.
Thank you, through the chair. So our Heritage Committee meeting calendar or meeting schedule for 2025 was just approved by council, along with all the other committees, advisory, standing, and council meetings. And so I just wanted to bring it to the committee because I know in the past there was some conflicts with some of the members on March break. So I thought it'd be a good time to adjust that now. And so we're going to pass a resolution for that date for council's consideration. And then we also thought we would do November because the way that the second Tuesday of the month landed, it's Remembrance Day. So out of reverence for the day, we are suggesting a couple other options. So I shared those ahead of time with the committee, but for the March meeting, we have March 4th or March 20th. And then for November, we have November 4th, November 10th, or November 20th. And then I know one day, I'm pretty sure it's one day doesn't work for Brian, so maybe he can confirm that one, but otherwise it's up to the committee which days work best for them.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comment and feedback on the dates? Brian, you said you had a conflict?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, for the March one, I can't do the 4th, the evening. The 20th worked, though. I think November, I said that those worked as well, right? I think all those dates, there was 3 dates and those worked. There was 2 that were preferred, but I don't think there was any conflicts on those ones for me at least.
I think it was like November the 4th, the 10th, and the 20th or something like that.
Yeah, I think you just set for the March meeting.
Okay, so for March 4th doesn't look great, but March 20th seems to be okay for everyone else. Okay, so we can say March 20th, and then for November 4th, or November's meeting, I was going to say the Tuesdays generally work well with me, and I think that one lands on a Tuesday, so that would be my preference if we had one, if anyone has any comment on it. The 10th and the 20th. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty open for November. So let's do November the 4th, Tuesday. Okay, awesome. So we can put that in as well. All right, resolution then that the verbal update regarding the 2025 Heritage Committee meeting schedule be received and that the March and November 2025 meetings be moved to March 20th, 2025 and November 4th, 2025. A mover. Councillor Cristangi. And a seconder, Councillor DeFlavio. Okay, all in favor? That's awesome. Okay, that's carried. Okay, moving on to our working group update. Okay, so that's me. Let me get my notes up here. All right, so the Education and Outreach Working Group. You may recall that we applied for a Niagara Community Foundation grant. It was a mini grant of $1,500 to go towards our print map, and we were successful in the grant, so that's really exciting. Big thank you to Janet Oakes at the Grimsby Museum for helping with that application. We'll have those funds to help with the design and the print of that map, so that's really great to have that kind of support. And I also sent along in the agenda our points of interest list that Janet, Kate, Amy, and myself have put together. The list, I'd like to go through it with you, and I would like your feedback, but I do have a couple points first. So how the listing, we took all of our designated heritage properties, public art around town, both town-owned as well as otherwise, undesignated historic sites, features, and landmarks, like think of, millstones, and as well as heritage interpretive plaques. So we've taken listings that were both already developed, inventories that were already developed elsewhere throughout the town, as well as some that we've had to identify on our own, and we kind of compiled it together into one list. And then from that, the working group kind of identified 5 narratives or layers, we're calling them layers, to kind of categorize the points of interest into. And those 5 layers are settling the 40, so think stories about early families, founding families, that early loyalist settlement, Grimsby Beach, arts, culture, and community, tracing industry and growth. So for that, think of manufacturing, the railroad, some of more of those industrial history here in Grimsby, and then another layer on fruit and farming. And the reason why we've identified these layers is how we want to use our digital map is to kind of have these interpretive layers that tell specific stories on specific themes in Grimsby's history. And, those 5 themes that I've laid out here, we can agree those are pretty important to telling the story here. We've considered using the town's GIS software to make a map, and maybe in the end goal in a couple years down the road, that is what we do. But for this first iteration, we think we'll use Google Maps to start. It's easy, it's accessible, it's free, it's public, and I've used Google Maps in the past to do various public history projects. So I linked to one in the document, and I'd like to put it up so that we can see what the functions can be and how the layers work. So we can talk about the map itself, and then I would like your feedback on the points of interest. So this is I didn't make this map, but it's a huge resource for anyone studying the histories of the 4 Welland canals. And what they've done is there's different layers pointing the different tangible remnants of the 4 different canals throughout time, and they each tell stories. But what's great is you can color code, you can connect with lines, but you can also, the layers that you see are all color coded. So in the left-hand side, you see like those check marks. If you were to uncheck a mark, then that layer disappears, and then you're just looking at another, at a specific canal. So how it would work on our digital map for Grimsby is, let's say you're on the map and you just want to look at Grimsby Beach properties, then we would use Google Maps to just show that layer. So it's kind of, it's interactive, it's a cool way to connect things. And then within those, if you can pick a dot, I don't know if we can, but you can, there's descriptions, you can add photos and links to other websites as well. So with something like this, we could link to our heritage designation reports, for example. We can include photos from the Historical Society and the Grimsby Museum. So there's lots of options, and it's easy to use in that a lot of people are familiar with Google Maps and how it works. So this is primarily going to be good for like desktop computers, but you can use it on your app or on your app as well. So that's something, again, would just be the first iteration, just to kind of get it out into the world, see what the interest is, what we can do with it, and then from there, the project can grow. So any questions about the map itself and then what we can do with it? Yes, Brian.
Through you, Chair. Do we, for the properties that are on here, do we need to get permission? Do we need to give notice to the property owners? Like, is there anything that we need to do? I know they're designated properties, or I think most of them are. Do we need to do anything like that to put them on there? I think it's a really cool idea. I'm just curious if that's something we need to consider and plan for.
Yeah, I would be curious. We've talked about maybe discussing this with the property owners or letting them know, but I did want to get That was a question I wanted to ask the town, now that we see just how exact we can get with these properties, right? So I wanted to ask what your feedback was on that.
Through the chair, I can look into it to get more information on it, but I would think as long as you're in the public realm, it's fine, acknowledging where the different sites are. It might be nice to share with the property owners, you've been included on the map, your site's really important, and then maybe we can give them, once they're ready, like a copy of the hard copy of the map or whatever, and include them in it that way. I don't know if there's kind of do we want to go above and beyond and do that? Do we have to? I think those are kind of, I don't know if we have to, but maybe we want to. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. I will say that, of course, with the map, we would share the address and just the history of the house. It wouldn't be, of course, who the homeowners are or anything like that. But yeah, that's maybe we with the print map specifically, that could be something that we could share with them. But yeah, we can talk about how we inform them, because I do think letting them know is definitely respectful about how we go about it. I'm open to. I know Janet had suggested talking to bylaw about this maybe. So I think she's pursuing that. I haven't heard much about that yet, but I can follow up with her also and bring that back to the committee. Yes, Councillor Christiangi, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just in following with that, I would say the history, for sure, but maybe being cautious on pictures, especially recent pictures, unless the homeowner chooses to have a picture in there, then maybe just have the history of it, and then it would be more, they'd be more empowered to decide if they wanted a modern photo or even the older photos.
Yes, we can just keep to the historic. I think that's definitely respectful to keeping it to that history and that story and that value, rather than the focus being on the present day. I think that's definitely valuable. Yes.
Through you, Chair, I did want to say that during the designation process, we found that when we used images off of Google Street View, property owners received that a lot better than an image that had been taken of the property because they're already publicly accessible. So that's something to think about as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett. Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, a couple of things. So for many of the actually designated properties, we have some of the sketches that we've used in the past. Those might be nice to include for that first layer that you have in your list there. Further to that, I think I mentioned when I brought this up in the past about using Google Maps, I've had my students create walking tours, and it's really easy to do once you've dropped those pins and put that information on. So you could take that that first layer and turn it into a walking tour rather than just a layer on the map, or by district walking tour, and it's great because it gives people a direction, and then when you do it that way, wherever you put the map, maybe start it with the first pin, if you have it, because you can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. A reminder that it's private property, these are private property, and that, to be respectful of people's privacy and all those other things. We want to encourage people to explore Grimsby and walk and be active and do all the positive things that come out of this, but at the same time, we want to respect, and I think that's what the point Brian was making, was that we want to respect people's privacy. So if we include that in the Google map, in the first slide, it makes it clear that that's our intent. And you can't legislate common sense, and having these things in a public register it would be just as easy for people to walk up to the front door now as if you created a Google map. That being said, we want to do everything we can to remind people in a friendly manner that we want to protect people's privacy. And I think that when you're a designated homeowner, you recognize that people are interested in your home. And many of the designated homeowners are the type of people that will, if they see you standing there looking at it, will invite you to and tell you about their home and other things like that. But we can't assume that about people. We want them to be inviting people in, not people to invite themselves. So if we could put that in there in writing somewhere, I think that would go a long way in making us feel better about putting that out there. That being said, I think I love everything. I like all the specifics and how you've broken it up. Once you do that by the color code, people can also overlay the whole thing and zoom into a district and kind of go around Grimsby Beach or go around Main Street between, Roberts Road and downtown or whatever or even just the downtown area. People could choose whatever they want, but once that's on Google Maps, it makes it really easy for people to interact with it and for people to do their own thing with it, which is what we want. And honestly, in the long run, although we got a grant for printing, nobody uses paper anymore. And this is the way that you want people. It's environmentally the better way to do it, but also logically the better way to do it, because you want to make things as easy and user-friendly as possible for people. And the days of paper are sadly past. As much as I loved what we used to do on paper, there aren't a lot of people that go and ask for a paper map anymore. And, we used to have, when I first got elected at the Welcome Center, we would have tearaway maps that we spent thousands of dollars on, and people would circle, this is where you want to go. And the people that go into a place for tearaway maps are very rare these days, because what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Google, where is the closest whatever? And look, it's trying to tell me. So I'm going to shut that off. But as soon as I say that, I can help with this. See, I apologize. I knew that was going to happen. Sorry about that. But you get the idea, right? We want to make it as user-friendly as possible and provide as much information as possible about the history, not the current people who are living in the house. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. I wrote the notes about including the sketches, making a disclosure. That seems to be probably the easiest way for us to kind of cover the bases about privacy and respecting these properties. And yeah, a good point about digital versus the print map. What I do like about Google Maps is there's lots of opportunity for it to grow. And what we'll be doing this year will just be the first iteration of the project, I hope, and then it can grow in the future. I would like to review the points of interest with you. I won't go through all of them, of course, but I did want to ask if any feedback on something that I might have missed. I do want to note that for the interpretive plaques that we've included on the list as it stands right now, it's just the heritage panels. It's not the natural heritage panels, so like the shoreline processes and on the waterfront, for example. There is talk of working a little bit closer with Sarah Sweeney to include trails and parks on something like this in the future. And if that's the case, and that's when we'll talk about the natural heritage plaques that we have around town. Also, that was brought up at the working group, is the Montreal Canadiens plaque is currently not around, I don't think, with the expansion, and we don't really know what's going to happen with it, I don't think, after the expansion with that big, huge Montreal Canadiens plaque. So that's something that's on the map right now, but I'm not sure what will happen afterwards. Might be in someone's house we can go visit later. Other thing to note, so for the digital map that we're hoping to get the first version of it for February 2025. So with this, with those 5 layers, the working group will select 10 properties per layer, or points of interest per layer, with the stories and the photos for February 2025. We'll have those 10 properties and 5 layers, and then all the other points of interest will just be on the map on like its own layer that we'll deal with at a later date, just because the working group's small and this is time consuming. So we'll just start with 10 in each layer to begin for launching during Heritage Week in February 2025. And then throughout the year, we'll be able to add to it. Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. To you or through you, the thing that I might suggest that a United Empire Loyalist layer, if we're not out of colors, because there's a lot of that branching from the United Empire Loyalist roots of Grimsby, so it might, and it also from a tourist perspective, it's something that people are interested in and something that people would look for are those roots. So it might be something that brings people into the municipality and a feature of interest. Again, it would be most of the things that all of the ones that are already in there, but just a different grouping.
Okay, yes. So just to clarify, that would be separate from the settling the 40. You would want to focus on the United Empire Loyalists and maybe like the different offshoots, like how the families had evolved and grown.
I want to apologize because I looked at the title and I saw every one of them except for this. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I looked at Grimsby Beach. I saw all the other ones, and I saw St. Andrew's Church under other categories, and I thought I think. So yes, settling the 40, I think it obviously settling the 40 and United Empire Loyalists, there's a lot of overlap. I think that identifying the United Empire Loyalist roots of the settling the 40 aspect helps to classify in a way that would add to a search, because settling the 40 is not meaningful for people coming from out of town. It's meaningful for us, but from an Upper Canada perspective, United Empire Loyalist is something that would be a search and something that would draw people to a search. So I'm thinking of it from a key terms perspective rather than a Grimsby perspective. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does. And I really appreciate that. And that's something that I should be keeping in mind for who the audience of this is. It isn't just the town of Grimsby community. We want tourists to be using this also, and people visiting, passing through. So that's a really good point. So we can consider keywords that other history buffs in the area might be interested in, not just Grimsby history buffs. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other feedback regarding the points of interest, the layers, the stories? Yes, go ahead, Brian.
Through you, Chair. Going back to the points on the map there, just had a thought. The reports that town staff write to substantiate the designation, are those public realm? Like, could we attach those to them? So I just feel like we get an amazing view into the history behind those properties that if we could. And the reason I thought of it is because there's always a picture on the front. And I thought, why don't we put that picture on the posting? And then it made me think, why don't we actually just put the report in there? And then everyone can get that condensed. All the research that you do is right there and you learn about the property. But I just don't know if that's something we can share or we want to share.
Yeah, they are all online, so and they are all linked in here, so it'd be really easy. And that was something that I mentioned in those descriptions. You can link to things, right? So I think that would, like you say, it's so thorough, and you get a really deeper understanding of the history. And all of our descriptions will be taken from those reports also. So we'll be sharing. It's the same kind of narratives happening. I do want to get your input in if that's okay.
Through the chair. So when they come here, we leave them in the draft format, and that's because we want to open up to everyone for consultation. So sometimes community members come forward, they have additional information, and we always include the Grimsby Historical Society and Wayne and his team, and they've put a ton of work in them as well. And so we want to make sure that it's a complete history for the town. And so a lot of times the draft may have a couple of changes since you've seen it. So we're doing that behind getting them all brought up to a complete final draft. And then the only other piece that sometimes delays us putting it on the website is the AODA compliance. So that hasn't been done just yet for them before we put them on the website. The older ones have. And then the other thing I was going to say, all of the recent designations, we've consulted all the property owners with those reports. So they do know what photos are in them and things like that. So I think that's a great resource and definitely something we can use. And it's within our work plan to get those up on the website. So we can work with Sarah on the ones that she's thinking to bring forward. We can prioritize those ones, and then we'll sort out what we need to do for the AODA compliance. But I think the most important part is it's like a complete history, and everybody's feedback's provided, and we consult with everyone. And again, big thank you to Wayne and his team at the archives. Absolutely the best to share with the community. We want them to hear all of those stories. So, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's good to know, and I'll keep that in mind. Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. I would suggest that what we put on Google Maps should be kept to a minimum as far as, like a brief summary. If the sample map that you gave of the Welland Canal will give like a paragraph and then a link. So that's where the putting it up thing is just, we can add for more information, go to, but you want to give people just the gist of it, because they're going to be looking at it on their phone most likely, and you don't want them to have to pull up a PDF or, but if they want to have that information, we want to have that information there for them, but you do want to make it something that's easy to just, I can read it on one screen. This is what it is, and if I want more information, I'll go further. Or there might be something at the home or at the actual plaque itself, because some of these are leading people to plaques that give people that information. So we don't need to provide it all here, but it is there, and we might as well use it. So I agree with all of that, just via link.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. We've spoken in the working group of those little description would look like the title of the property, and then a little blurb like 150 characters, not long at all, just with that information, or words, I should say, rather, very, very short. Yes.
Through you, Chair. I did want to say that the bylaws that were passed for each property are available on the website right now, and the statement of significance, it's about 3/4 of a page for each property, but that does contain all of the information that was included from the archives and the draft reports. So that's kind of that final version of the high-level history there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this has been really great feedback. Thank you so much. And anything else before we wrap this up? Okay, great. I'm really glad to get this feedback. I'm excited about the project and to see where it goes. So in terms of next steps, we'll be working towards identifying those layers and fleshing out what 10 properties we choose for each layer and what those descriptions look like. And again, we'll keep them very short and then link out where we can. And, one historic image or two. We like visuals, but again, we don't want to inundate with what they're looking at on the map. But hopefully I'll be able to have an update for January, and then definitely for February, as we hope to launch during Heritage Week, which is the 3rd week of February. Okay, that's great. Okay, so with that then, I do have a resolution resolved that the verbal update regarding the working group be received. A mover. Councillor Kristanji. And a seconder. Brian. All in favor. Okay, that's carried. Awesome. Okay, so it was just verbal updates for the committee meeting today, no reports. So it looks like, unless we have any other announcements. Okay, Councillor DeFlavio has a new business question.
Yeah, it's not really new business. It's just an update. We had many designations earlier in the year, and we haven't had any in a while, any designation reports. Is that happening in the background, and we're going to see some in the new year? Just kind of an update about what's happening with, I know that the change in provincial legislation and the more time that we have has allowed us to kind of regroup and reprioritize. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what's coming down the pipes for 2025 from a heritage perspective.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So yes, in the background, we've been working on the reports with the designations, we had 46 completed, and they all had, like, groups of 3 of them all had different timelines. So we took advantage of that to finish all of the files. So they've all officially been designated, bylaws passed, everything finished with those. But we have still been producing them in the background. And then we were getting ready to start again, and then the postal strike took place. So we haven't yet been able to sent out the initial letter to the 3 property owners. We were hoping to bring December, January. We don't know if it got to them, and we haven't been able to send the second draft report. So we're keeping working on them. As soon as the postal strike is up, we'd like to start bringing them forward again. So that's kind of the idea, but we're still working in the background, and we'll have the reports coming. But it's just that notification. We don't want anyone to miss them.
Oh, thank you for that update. That's too bad about the strike. Yes, Councillors Christianji, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend the committee. I think we're 2 years in now, and I feel like most of you guys have done an unbelievable amount of work and accomplished a lot of stuff. The designations, this working group with the mapping, but the grants and getting that forward and through, and the tax incentive that will be proposed and stuff like that. So I feel like in 2 years a lot of stuff has come forward. So I would just like to commend everybody on their hard work, and thank you. I think for me, being on this committee has been a great experience. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that you've done for the community and stuff like that. So I think that deserves to be recognized.
Thank you for those kind words, Councillor Christianji, and I definitely echo them. The Heritage Planners have been doing really great work here, and it's a good committee to be a part of. Lots of positive things for the Heritage community. So thank you, everyone. Okay. I think with that, then, we can adjourn this evening's meeting. So thank you all for joining, and have a very happy holidays, and we'll see everyone in the new year.